Today we're going to be talking about the next card in our tarot series, which is the Hanged Man. And the Hanged Man follows along this process of the Hermit's Path, the second of the three paths or structures of the major arcana. And we saw how in the Fortitude card, the Hermit was struggling against the animal element of man's nature. Well, the Hanged Man has to do with the Hermit's struggle to overcome the intellectual side of man's nature, not the instinct, but the mind. This includes the struggle against the initiate himself and against the idea of the magician, if you would. Against the idea that if you know enough, you're going to figure it out, and that then you'll be in control. These are ideas which are ultimately toxic ideas to the spiritual experience. So people pursue the intellectual, and they get stuck into the intellectual, attached to it, out of a kind of fear of the dark, you could say, out of a fear of what it means to be ignorant. I've often taught people that sometimes the most powerful transformative thing that you can declare for yourself is, I don't know. Because if you can say that, it opens up this whole world for you of the opportunity to change. But people are afraid of not knowing. They're afraid of what that means, that they're trapped and that they're helpless. So instead, they prefer to fill themselves with things that they can be sure they know, that they can be solid on, that they see as light against the darkness. The problem is that what they see as darkness is actually a kind of darkness visible. It's a light that goes beyond the ability of just the brain to process or the mind to process and understand things, but it's the power to see without being able to fully logically comprehend. So filling yourself with knowledge sometimes blocks your access to the real, to that real that can't be analyzed. It's like a black light or an ultraviolet light, something beyond the spectrum of our ability to put into criteria by ourselves. But that if we can look for it, we can end up making use of it in a more holistic way than just with the mind. So the Hanged Man features a figure that is sacrificing himself. There he is. He's hanging upside down, and in this particular deck, the one that I'm using, you can see there are coins falling out of his pockets, sprinkling down. And the Hanged Man, it is implicit in the Hanged Man that he has put himself there, that it is an act of contrition, you could say, or an act of sacrifice. And so he has to give up something. And what he's giving up with those coins sprinkling out of his pockets are his ideas of what he knows. This idea that he previously had a structured and ordered sort of vision of life, and that he knew what he knew and he knew what he didn't know. But the problem is that there are many things that he didn't know. And in order to be able to understand in a way that's really fulfilling and not just this kind of mental classifying, which is what the intellect tries to do, he's got to sacrifice the concept that he may end up somehow being able to figure it all out in one, and then that solves the whole problem of life. There is no mystical equation that answers the whole problem of life. And that's the delusion that people operate under when they try to decipher it as some kind of an intellectual exercise. And why do people do this? Well, because to many people, the intellect is their identity. And certainly to many spiritual seekers, they define themselves as what they know. So they feel like it is a crucial part of their identity that they are really clever in certain areas, or that they've got a whole lot of facts about one thing or another. You know, in the case of a spiritual seeker, they might fill themselves with knowledge of sacred texts and sacred teachers and sacred rituals and who knows what else, right? They're filling their mind with all this stuff, with all of these facts. And they're also trying to define themselves by their knowledge of those facts. So the Hanged Man is about sacrificing that identity. It's about saying, if you want to really understand, you have to drop out of that identity, the identity of the alleged knower. And when you're initiated, you develop a spiritual identity as well. You learn meditation practices, you practice meditation, you study, and you dedicate yourself, and you see yourself as a deeply spiritual person because you're doing a lot of meditating or talking a lot about God or about Buddha or about meditation or about your guru or about any number of other things. And this is also something which has to be overcome. The Hanged Man is basically about overcoming, getting through all of these intellectually based, mentally based definitions of yourself. And there's an obvious parallel in the symbolism of the Hanged Man with the symbolism of Christ on the cross, and also with Odin. The god Odin sought to gain understanding of the universe, and in order to obtain this understanding, he had to impale himself upside down on the tree of life, and only then did he manage to see the secrets that taught him the knowledge of all things, which were the runes. The runes were the Norse alphabet, and they were also the Norse equivalent of the tarot, you could say. But what's really important in that is that you have to let go of everything you are, or everything you think you are, in order to gain these greater understandings that are not from you, that it's not about who you are, right? It's not, you can't own the knowledge that this represents. And that's because this knowledge, the form of the runes or the form of the tarot, or the understanding, the deeper understanding that comes when you abandon the ego, is based on symbol. So it's not something that you can wrap your head around and put it in a little package and define it and say, that's it, and then you've got it and you're done. So instead it's something that is beyond you and does not allow you to feel like you're the clever one for having solved the problem of life or something like that. Nor does it solve the problem of life necessarily. It just creates an absolute experience. And reason is a kind of barrier at times for that absolute experience. I'm going to talk a little more about this in the next part 2 of the Hanged Man, because I think it's an important subject.